Hey, good Wednesday evening, everyone. It's 21 News Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm here with the Valley's most in-depth weather forecast video, Weather for Weather Geeks. We spent our Wednesday in between weather systems. We had a stormy day yesterday. We're going to have a stormy day tomorrow. In fact, several pretty unsettled days look like will unfold over the next several days. We'll talk about the changes we had to make to our forecast for the weekend and beyond in this video. But first, let's recap a little bit what happened yesterday. We did some of this last evening, but as a result of yesterday's storms, we still have over 1,000 without power in Columbiana County, and I am one of those without power. I live in Columbiana County, and I've been without power now at my house for over 24 hours. Gotta imagine our food is getting a little bit gamey in the fridge and the freezer. I had quite a cleanup in my yard this morning. Lots of sticks and twigs and small limbs. We didn't have any significant damage around my neighborhood, but not far from where I am. We did have some fairly substantial tree damage and some road closures as a result. And, this was in Columbiana County. The rest of our area got away okay last evening with minimal problems with the storms that pushed through. And one of the, kind of questions or debates in the weather world today was this a derecho? Derecho is a term used for long-lived, bowing, arcing bands of thunderstorms that produce consistent wind damage and have very high wind speeds along a big, long path. And this pretty much qualifies. Now, technically speaking, the number of official weather stations that recorded a 70-plus mile-per-hour gust did not meet the threshold that is commonly used to call someone, or call something, I should say, a derecho. But for all intents and purposes, this was a derecho. It kind of was born over Illinois, strengthened over Indiana and western Ohio, rolled all the way through the Buckeye State, in fact, rolled all the way almost through Pennsylvania as well. Unfortunately, this did produce a few fatalities. One, I think, at least around Pittsburgh, or a couple around Pittsburgh, and one out in central PA around the State College area. And so this really meant some business. Some of the wind gusts, after doing some storm surveys today, some of the wind gusts on the east side of Pittsburgh were estimated to be 90 to 95 miles per hour. Now, on the west side of Pittsburgh, where the Pittsburgh International Airport is, the peak gust there was 71 miles per hour. But the Weather Service office in Pittsburgh did some storm surveys, of course, today. They did not find tornadic damage, but they did find evidence of perhaps 90 to 95 mile per hour gusts on the east side of the greater Pittsburgh area. Look at these peak wind gusts yesterday and some of the other reporting locations. Zanesville 58, Port Columbus International Airport 59 miles per hour. Our peak gust locally 44 at the Youngstown Warren Airport, sub-severe there. But the damage path here as far as wind damage, I estimate it to be over 600 miles, stretching from southern Illinois through central and east central parts of Pennsylvania. Now, we've had, of course, a much nicer day today, but severe weather is ongoing to our south and west. A couple of tornado watches out this evening, one for around the mid-Ohio Valley and the other one down towards the Mississippi Valley and back towards the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And speaking of Dallas, and kind of between Dallas and Oklahoma City, lots and lots of rain over the last 24 hours. There's been some radar estimates here of up to 7, 8, 9 inches worth of rain, pretty common. And, of course, flash flood warnings are out for many, many locations. But, after that big spike in our dew points yesterday, the dew points got into the 60s yesterday, the dew points crashed back into the 30s today. It was much more comfortable outside this afternoon. The higher dew point air lurking to our south, this stationary front or boundary is kind of the defining front or boundary, if you will, between kind of a summer-like air mass and one that's a little more typical of late April, which is the one that we have overhead in our part of the region. But all this juice is going to get set to come back north tomorrow as low pressure forms out here. This is going to become more of a warm front rather than a stationary front, and we're going to see another big change in our air mass for our Thursday. And today, the Storm Prediction Center, for their Day 2 severe weather outlook, did include all of our TV viewing area in eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania in the level 2, slight risk of severe weather. Now, if you remember, of course, yesterday we were in a level 3, enhanced risk of severe weather. The risk category 1 lower for tomorrow, but that doesn't mean it's going to be an easy day. We could very well have some strong, perhaps even severe thunderstorms here and there as we go into the afternoon tomorrow. And, kind of the window we're looking at here is basically, I think, early to mid to late afternoon, roughly the entire afternoon, in other words, 1 p.m. to about 6 p.m. Once we get into the evening, I think the severe weather threat will diminish pretty quickly. But the main threats tomorrow, damaging wind gusts and hail. I don't have an isolated tornado listed on here. The tornado risk tomorrow is quite low. I don't think it's quite zero. In fact, Northwest PA especially, there may be some ingredients for some isolated tornadoes in places like Erie. The northwestern corner of PA, I think, has the best chance perhaps of having some rotating thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. But certainly damaging wind gusts are going to be the number one threat, along with some hail as well. And in fact, with their mid-afternoon update for day 3 today, they did include our region in a low-end Category 1 risk of severe weather on Friday. I think this will be again in the afternoon. This is going to be a day where the atmosphere will still be pretty unstable. Some cold air aloft, warming up with some sunshine at the surface. We'll probably get up to 70 or so on Friday. There could once again be a couple of wind-producing storms and perhaps some small hail as well. So let's look at one model depiction of the next few days. Our warm front lifts in tomorrow morning. Might be a shower or even a renegade thunderstorm tomorrow morning. The coverage on that I think will be pretty small. As we get into the afternoon tomorrow and we're firmly in the warm sector, we'll approach 80 with the dew points coming up. And this may come in a couple of waves. We may see one initial round around our area early in the afternoon, say 1, 2 to 3 o'clock or something like that. There may be another round that then tries to come through closer to dinner time for most folks, maybe 4:35 to 6 o'clock or something like that. As I was mentioning a minute ago, once we get past 6, 7 o'clock, we should be in pretty good shape then for the rest of the night. For tomorrow, then we'll get off to a dry start Friday. This front stalls on Friday, and the atmosphere will still be pretty unstable. In northwest Ohio, there'll be more in the cooler air mass on the other side of the front. But in eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania, I think we're still on the side of the front that is warm and unstable. Thunderstorms will be a possibility for the second half of the day on Friday. And in fact, with this front nearby and low pressure starting to form along it by Saturday morning, it looks pretty soggy for Saturday, especially during the first half of the day. I'm old enough to remember, 2 days ago when it looked like Saturday and Sunday especially was going to be a really nice couple of days, and the nice weather was going to stretch into next week. Not so much at this point. We talked about this a little last evening, but we didn't really make many changes to our medium range forecast yesterday because we were focused mostly on the near-term severe weather. But today we had more time to concentrate on the medium range forecast. And basically what's going to happen is low pressure is going to get cut off. This, a couple of days ago looked like it would be out to sea, but now it's going to miss its ride on the jet stream. It's going to get cut off. Upper low, weather person's woe, as the saying says. And, this is probably going to circle the drain here for a few days. As long as it's nearby, we're going to have a chance for showers and perhaps even some afternoon thunderstorms as the atmosphere turns unstable. These could be graupel or hail-producing storms as we get into early next week, and that really cold air underneath that upper level low resides overhead. This is probably going to stick around for a handful of days next week. So we've added rain chances to our forecast Sunday right through Tuesday and Wednesday. Wasn't that long ago we had a sunny forecast for a few days early next week, but sometimes you just gotta, the writing's on the wall. You gotta make a big change to the forecast, and today was one of those days. And today is the last day of April, so we'll go into the record books this month as a warmer than average month. Didn't look that way for a while. That was a cold stretch during the second week of the month. But ever since about the middle of the month, the warm days have outnumbered the cool days. Now today's high of 65 was just slightly cooler than the average. But we're going to finish the month about a half a degree above the average temperature-wise. Precipitation-wise, officially at the airport. Now, in terms of spring and summer precipitation especially, your mileage varies from location to location, depending on where storms decide to set up. For example, yesterday at the Youngstown Warren Airport, 0.13, parts of southern Columbiana County had an inch or so worth of rain yesterday. But officially at the airport in Vienna and Trumbull County, 1.23 inches above the average, almost exactly 5 inches worth of rain in the month of April. Let's look ahead to May. Today, the final day of the month. Of course, the Climate Prediction Center issued their final monthly outlooks for the month of May. I agree with their sentiment here in terms of temperatures. I think it's likely to be a warmer than average month, maybe even by a more significant margin than we've had in April. Again, April's going to go into the record books as about a half a degree warmer than the average. In terms of precipitation, now it looks pretty unsettled for a time during the first maybe week of the month. Again, a big change from our expectations a couple of days ago. But the month as a whole probably favored to be somewhat drier than the average. The strongest signal for that is across the upper Midwest. Flash drought may be a concern for parts of the upper Midwest as we head into May. Might be a pretty dry summer in places like Minnesota, the Dakotas, the Corn Belt. That's a concern for farmers and growers out there. I don't think it's as much of a concern around here for May or the summer. But around here, May does not look especially wet. In fact, it may come out in the wash as drier than the average and drier than the month that we've had so far, or almost complete now in the month of April. All right, so another day to stay weather aware coming up on Thursday. You know we'll have you covered on air and online. Thanks for watching this Wednesday evening Weather for Weather Geeks, and I will see you back here tomorrow.